Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two cousins who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
Hi, Monica.
and this week we are joined by a special guest.
I'm Courtney.
Hello. So, Courtney, do you want to start by letting our listeners know a little bit about you?
Sure. I live in New York City. I work in music publishing. I don't know. I love coffee. It's still early here, so that's the extent of what that
one. So Courtney and I met because you guys went to high school together, right? Yeah, her high school best friend was my roommate when I worked at Disney World. And that's how Courtney and I met. And then we just clicked because we like all of the same things and have the same thoughts and feelings about almost everything. And yeah. Now, and she has been our podcast's #1 fan. She supports us super hard, and not just because she likes me, she actually thinks we know what we're talking about, so that's encouraging.
Yeah, it makes me honestly feel less of an idiot when I'm like, oh, at least one person seems to think that they are interested in what we're talking about, so hey, one person is better than no one.
That's true. That's true.
I do love it. I love to be here I watch every Sunday morning with my coffee and get cozy. It's great.
Oh.
So today, what were you gonna say? No, go, please.
I was like, it's nice that I finally have someone on my time zone here, so I'm not it doesn't just seem like I just am so over everything in life. It's just because death, early morning, not used to it.
Yeah.
See, we record on a rather unfortunate time for Monica because I have a job.
You could have just said nothing. It would have cost you $0 to not say it. But you said, let's say it. I'm unemployed. Unemployed bastard.
Well, no, I mean, it's not. Yes, you're unemployed, but so is half of America right now. So that's not really your fault. And Courtney has a job, but she still has to do it from her apartment.
No, I'm back in the office now.
Oh, are you back in the office?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I went a month ago and then went back home for 2 weeks, and then I went back in this week, and it's a whole thing.
Oh. But yeah, Thailand is basically COVID free at this point.
The dream.
You're living the dream.
We're having all kinds of issues. Otherwise, I don't know if you have been on Twitter, but the top 3 global trending hashtags in all of the world are about the protests in Thailand right now. It's kind of a disaster. But no COVID, so
Your battles, I guess.
Right. So this week,
love you. Sorry, my mother was leaving. I had to say goodbye.
Farewell, Anne-Marie. This week, we are discussing kind of the entirety of season 1 of Hemlock Grove and what we think is happening in the future in season 2 and all of that fun stuff. Inside Baseball, the way our recording schedule works, we have already recorded the season 1 finale episode, but it has not been published yet, so Courtney hasn't been able to hear it yet. So she is unaware of just how horribly short and angry last week's podcast was.
Yeah, obviously for everyone who has already listened at this point, the last episode of Hemlock Grove was definitely there were some high points, but it ended a lot of things, but also still left you with a lot of questions. I just didn't like the way we got those answers or the way those
Yeah.
questions were.
And for Courtney's benefit, I'd like to refresh everyone's memory on the 10 minutes we started talking about crab rangoon and yogurt, because that was more interesting than the episode.
That's very true. But also, when do we not talk about crab rangoons at least once in an episode?
Fair. Very fair point. So, I would like to just start with everyone kind of like general wrap up. How did you feel after season 1 of Hemlock Grove? And Courtney, as our guest who has yet to get her words on the finale in yet, why don't you go first?
Alrighty. A lot of feelings. I was very angry. I feel like they did not do well to set up for season 2. I feel like they just killed a lot of people. And then we're like, here's your 5 characters that may or may leave town and never come back.
Mm.
But Roman will be there.
Yeah. No. It was the last 5 minutes of the episode. There are the 5 cliffhangers of like, oh, we fucked up at ending the season, so here are the 5 scenes that will tell you what next season is about. And I was like, wait, 1, 2, no, it's 5.
Yeah, we literally said that in last week's episode too.
Yeah.
The way that everything wrapped up, definitely me and Mary Kate had addressed this in last week's episode. So it was very much like, we're gonna make it seem like it's ended, like just in case we don't get renewed for another season. But here, in case, it's not gonna completely ruin your life if you don't get season 2, because the cliffhangers are kind of odd. Like, they're there, but will you really be mad? Will you really be mad if another season didn't come out based on how the season went? If you're looking at it from a like nitpicky standpoint, because yesterday when my boyfriend was over, I told him, he was like, oh, like, he watched the season 1 recap with me, and so he was like, oh, that actually doesn't like look bad. And I'm like, you're right. Like, it's not bad if you're just looking for something to watch and you're not sitting there like tearing it apart and like purposely having to look at both good and bad.
I totally agree. I think if I was just watching this show like I watch any other show, I would probably really like it. I think that the characters are written in a compelling way. I think the art direction is fantastic. But since I'm sitting here spending hours trying to digest it in a more intellectual way, someone doesn't know what a plot is.
Yeah. For sure. It just sucks that our first show we're like so mean. Like, we're just like, this terrible. Like, also, I mean, take our with like very grains of salt. We're not like this.
No, of course. We only, like I said, we only vaguely know what we're doing. But Courtney, you are also a writer as well, as being part of like the entertainment industry. From your background, what do you think of the writing of this show?
Oh my gosh. The character writing was so out there. Like, I feel like they were not consistent with how their characters were.
Yeah.
The plot line, like, they would do things where I'd completely forget that scenes happened, and then they'd try to recall it later, and I was like, I don't even care about this. Like, this didn't actually matter. They wrote way too heavily on some people that didn't last. Like, when they wrote on Clementine for like what felt like 1,000 episodes, and then she never came back until she died, and then she was gone. I was like, that was a waste of time. Like,
I agree, but I also disagree in the sense that Clementine's backstory was kind of like breadcrumbing us into who this Order of the Dragon is, and we need that for the future, especially with the bishop now owning Godfrey Institute. I mean, granted, as has been made clear very often in this podcast, whenever that man shows up on screen, my notes just say "fuck you." So like, But I do think that with Michael playing a bigger part in season 2 and the Order of the Dragon still being the main like question mark, I do get why they gave us what they gave us. But yeah, I don't think they handled her character well at all.
No, because for the longest time I had disliked Clementine's character. And I kind of still did up to the end, but I also understood her character more and understanding like as to why she's doing what she's doing and why she has all these issues. And so it made her motives clearer besides just, I know you're innocent, but I'm still gonna kill you anyway. At least it explained the reason why she had to do what she had to do with Peter. I just wish she would have just walked away when she knew that it wasn't the issue and actually helped Peter if she was leaving the Order of the Dragon anyway, because that
Well,
would have been
question mark, if she had walked away, wouldn't Olivia still have found a way to kill her?
probably. But her end, like her demise, has I don't see or would have reflected if she was gonna kill Peter or not. She was gonna die anyway by the hands of Olivia and Price. Like that was just gonna happen. I just think for her character arc, for her to like have some redeeming aspect to what her life has been going through, like that point when she talked to Peter could have been a turning point for her character to make her seem like, in theory, in our universe, from the point of view that we're seeing it from, even though Peter is a werewolf, and typically the werewolves are not like good people, or in traditional thing you want to defeat like the beast or whatever, for her to be helping Peter in this story, I think would have been an interesting thing, and then her death could have been more painful to watch because we all would have gotten to see that she actually was trying to do the right thing.
See, but I
At
think
least,
in the end she was, because she was going to kill Peter, which obviously is not what we want as the audience and on Peter's team, but the horrible douchebag Mr. Priestman didn't want Peter dead. He wants something bigger and something darker. And she was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm just going to kill him instead.
yeah, that is at least fair. That I will give you that. That is also very fair.
I think my greatest issue with this season, and I have a lot of issues, but my greatest issue with the season is that we have watched 13 episodes of this
Mm-hmm.
show and have learned extensively about all kinds of different mythology and lore and all of these characters' backgrounds. And I still don't know what an Upir really is. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, in the season 1 recap, Eli Roth's definition of it is a vampire like creature from somewhere in Romania or Siberia. So I don't think even the writers know what it is. And
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, I think they were just like fancy word for vampire.
Yeah, the
But
amount of
there's
times
but
I wrote like what is Roman, what is going on, I have been confused the entire season.
well, and it's things like, okay, yes, obviously they are vampiric of some nature, but according to this season finale, Olivia turned when she was 13, but she's a
Mm-hmm.
grown adult, so she can still age, question
And
mark. But then she also can't age because this happened like 400 years ago. She can have children, so like she's still alive, but she's clearly not. And I don't know if it's intentionally confusing or just a shit ton of plot holes.
yeah, I don't know if it'll possibly be explained later. Like maybe an Upier still ages, but it takes them thousands and thousands and thousands of years to fully age. So like they're still alive, but they're like like they grow slower. I have no clue. So like they're at certain points of their life for longer than like a normal human being. Like 1400s, that's when Olivia was like got bit or got, no, she didn't get bit, she got some weird meditated thing happen to her. She like ripped a tail off her body for
Yeah,
whatever.
also, why does she have a tail?
Yeah.
Maybe that was like a birth defect and she's like, this tail makes me ugly, yoink, and just like ripped it off because we got no insight as to what that tail meant.
I
Zero.
thought about like what if it was supposed to be like a dragon's tail? Like, since I have no idea what these people are, if they're angels, if they're vampires, whatever it is. So I was like, maybe it's like a dragon tail, since the
Well,
word is
I
a
mean,
dragon.
she does tell Roman he's not a warrior, he's a dragon. Whatever
Right.
the F that means.
Like, and me and Mary Kate, when we were talking about this in last week's episode, it was very unclear. Like, I had a feeling that it was when Roman put a baby inside of his cousin / half sister, because that's still a thing that existed when we found out that Norman
Oh yeah,
was,
that we still haven't addressed that.
you would think that would be something important, that Peter would be like, not Peter, Roman would be like, yo, so you're my dad? Like, just to clear the air. But definitely Olivia was the one in control of that situation, which I had a feeling for.
Right,
And
but they didn't make that clear either. Like the season recap says, Roman's the father because he impregnated Letha while under Olivia's power. Thank you, Eli Roth, for telling me that in plain language, because you sure didn't do it in the show.
yeah, definitely.
I shouldn't have to watch the season recap a week after watching the show to know what happened in the show.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure. And I think that there was a lot of ways that they could have carried out this season. And it honestly only scares me because only thing that we know about season 2 at this present moment, we haven't watched the trailer together, but the only thing that we know about season 2 at this moment is that the Rotten Tomato score is significantly lower, and it just continues to just go down. So the hopes I have, not very high.
Well, no, I know exactly 2 things about season 2. Peter is still in the show and will have at least one werewolf transformation on screen because I accidentally found it on YouTube. Number 2, the baby is going to be in the show.
Oh, like his love
Like,
baby?
Yeah, so basically this show sucks.
Yep.
That's the basic consensus.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's mean to say, but like, I don't think it sucks. I think it just has flaws that weren't addressed.
Mm.
And it's also hard because I keep forgetting that the show's 7 years old. And even though it doesn't seem like it, the quality in television writing in the last 7 years is definitely a big jump.
Oh yeah.
Well, I will say I started this show 7 years ago.
Right.
One of my coworkers who I was really good friends with, he was like, you have to watch this show. It's so good. I was in college and I was like, okay, fine. So I sat down. I think I watched the first 2 episodes, but literally I didn't even remember any of that when I restarted with you guys. And I could not get into it then. So I don't know that you would have enjoyed it any more 7 years ago than you.
I'm trying to think like who I was as a person 7 years ago. And I really don't think I would have liked it. But also, mostly I wouldn't have liked it because I was dealing with a lot of emotional trauma 7 years ago. Because that is the year that me and the big ex broke up. And yeah, I don't know that I could have handled all of the nonsense in that show.
Yeah. I mean, for fairness, it's a decent watch. Like, if you want to just sit and watch something just to say that you watched it. Like I said before, if you're not sitting there nitpicking every small little thing, like, yes, there's plot holes. Yes, there's probably going to be some things that are going to be hard to oversee in the show. And if you, and in all honesty, if you are drawn to more darker shows, more creepy shows, this is honestly not a terrible watch if you're not going to sit and question every little thing about the show. This is like, the show's gonna be like, if we ever do Stranger Things on here, it's one of my favorite shows, but from looking at it from a standpoint of actually like talking about it in a critical sense, there are going to be things that aren't going to be 100% perfect about that show. And
Oh, no, I don't think there's never been a single show that I have watched that I have had zero issues with. I don't think that it's possible. I just think that there was a lot in this show that bothered me, in the sense that a lot of times when you write from a non-realistic standpoint, like when you're writing a drama, say Grey's Anatomy, and everything is very based in like how people interact in real life. When you're writing something that is supernatural, that is a sci-fi, that is a thriller, you get to take leaps that you don't get to take in reality, but those leaps only work if you have consistency in character motivation.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what this show was lacking, because there were times when literally I was like, why would that doesn't seem like something that person would do?
Yeah.
Right.
I think the only character that was consistently written the same in the whole show was Roman, but his character arc was struggle and drama and conflict and not knowing who he was. So having him not make sense from one episode to the next was what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was more forgiveness that if he was a more consistent, confident, aware character like Peter, I would have been able to find issues in his character as well.
Yeah.
I did feel like there were a few moments in Roman's character that I was just like, this, like, as out there as his character is, like how you never know what's gonna happen, this I feel like still didn't fit. Like, and it was only a couple of small times, but there were definitely a couple of times that I was like, these characters are not who you wrote them as. Like, I don't.
And I wonder, like, so like I've said before, I have not read the book. I don't know if the book is a single book or a series. I believe it's only one book. I don't know if it's the plot of season 1 or the plot of the whole show. Like, I don't know what Brian McGreevy's source material is. I also know from extensively listening to interviews and reading the books and watching Game of Thrones that even with the author on hand, things can get drastically changed for reasons that don't, like, there are 2 scenes in particular in season 1 of Game of Thrones that George R.R. Martin has specifically said that if HBO had had the money, would not have looked that way because they were terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I know that even with George R.R. Martin sitting there, they still fuck things up in Game of Thrones. So, like, I don't know what we're basing it off of, but it just seems so disjointed that I can't imagine what reading the book feels like.
Yeah.
I still think there was a scene in episode 4, I believe, where Dr. Price said that a lot of the work of the Godfrey Institute, they follow the spaghetti method, where they just throw things at the wall and see if it sticks. That is what this show was. They just threw things out and hoped they worked. And most of them did not.
And the thing is that I genuinely think that this show had a lot of potential in for what it was, and especially trying to have to read. I couldn't even imagine reading the book because unless it's like a story where you are reading from an outsider's perspective, like the show, still crazy. I think I'd be just as confused. If you were to be any of the characters' point of view from that storyline, I think I'd be even 10 times more confused.
Could you imagine if it is a first-person narrative? Whose story is it?
I feel like it would be either Peter or Roman's.
Well, I think that the story of Hemlock Grove is Roman's story. I think that the through line of the show will be Roman's story. But Roman has the least information of anyone in the story. So how could it be from his point of view?
That's what I said, regardless if you're getting a complete overview of everyone and you're reading it from an outsider's perspective of the book, you're going to be just as confused as you were with the show. I have a feeling, like reading that, even if there is more detail, less plot holes in it, I still think you would be extremely confused just because of the absolute, pardon my French, but fuckery that has happened in this show. Trying to obtain all of that in the book, probably not the easiest thing to do.
Well, and we're not talking minor plot holes.
No, we're talking like major ones.
We're talking things that, like, I still don't understand how they're even connected.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he's like an extremely detailed writer and they're trying to stretch this book into 3 seasons. So they're like, we're going to pick up the major things that happened, but with all of his writing, there's so much that happens in the detail that you just can't put into a TV show, and that's why it's so disjointed. But I also don't read the book, so.
And I mean, no show will ever be a carbon copy of a book, no movie. Like, listen, me and Mary Kay talked about this last week. If I had to sit down and actually, like, critique Twilight, I would hate it. But you want to know what? The story is a good story. I will say that the story is a good story. The movie, like, that's a great thing between book and movie. Like, the book is actually really good. The story of Twilight is actually really good, and it's also a romance thing. So yes, if it's not your cup of tea, it just isn't your cup of tea. The movies,
but you can still make a masterpiece leaving details out. Harry Potter and Game of Thrones are perfect examples of a world that was created, and there are large chunks of the books missing in both places, but they were both successful without the book.
Yeah. And I just think that book to movie ratios, which is why, like, because I did that once. I read one book. Like, I read the Twilight stories, like, slowly, like, while the first Twilight was getting released. And so I'd already seen the first Twilight before I finished, I think, the first book. But
Well,
still, like,
you were also, what, 4 when that came out?
I was like 9 when that came, 8 or 9 when it came out, and I read it. And but the thing is that I think the one book series that ruined reading a book before seeing a movie for me was The Hunger Games. I went and saw the first Hunger Games, and I thought was one of the most important scenes in the book that happened between, and also the cornucopia wasn't an actual cornucopia like they had described in the book, like it was a legit cornucopia, and it was also gold, and the final scene was in the middle of the daytime because Katniss got burned on it. And then, yes.
The Twilight book came out when you were 4. I wasn't talking about the movie. I just checked.
Yeah, the books came out when I was 4, but like I didn't read them until like the actual
That's
movie.
why I'm saying, of course you didn't read it first. It came out when you were 4.
Yeah, I was an infant.
Got it.
But
sorry.
I wonder if what the Twilight movies would have looked like if they came out in like 2004. Like, granted, I know there's only 4 years difference between when it came out in the movie theaters, but like, could you imagine the fashion, the statements that would be being made? I don't feel like it would.
The fashion was already terrible.
No, yeah, you're right, but it would be worse.
I don't know. 2000.
I loved early 2000s.
I don't know if you know, but Courtney and I looked great in 2004.
Absolutely.
But I'm talking about like early like 2000s like emos, like
Absolutely.
like 2004.
Yeah, did you see me in 2004?
Bro, I can't remember what I did 3 weeks ago.
I wore wristbands with safety pins in them and like big chain pants, like
spiked belts.
Yes.
But that's what the vampires would look
My
like.
hair was this long.
It's like this.
Oh,
I only
yeah.
had one eye for like 5 years. Mm.
Don't worry. I entered a scene emo phase when I was 15. No, 14. 14 to 15, around that time of my life.
Yeah, but now you just look like Billie Eilish, so.
Yeah.
But I want that taken. Like, Billie's gorgeous. I love that. But my brother has told me the same thing, and I said that's incorrect. Do not say that I look like Billie Eilish. I don't want to. Just because I have green in my hair now doesn't mean anything. I'll be gone by next Friday. Jesus.
Anyway. So, back to this shit-tastic show. What would you rank as your favorite episode of season 1?
Well, let me look at the Netflix thing so I can actually say the title of the show and not be like, the one where this happens. Hold on 1 second, because I didn't write it down. I was just like, oh, I'll talk about it, but I was like, I probably should just actually say the name of the episode. And Courtney, if you have a favorite, you are more than welcome to go first.
I'm looking to see which episode's which. My time does not run normal for me right now, so I couldn't even begin.
I'm very torn on what my favorite episode is.
I believe as well. Honestly, I think Calabasas for me was probably one of the best ones, because we finally that was the episode that was a turning point when we realized what Roman was going through, and we uncovered a lot about him that apparently he hadn't known himself. I thought it was a good turning point for his character. Sad thing is we saw nothing come from it, but for what the episode was on its own, I still think that it was really good.
And that's my problem too, is looking, both of the episodes that I had pegged as what might be my favorite episodes were then ruined by the episode that followed them.
Yeah.
But Calabasas was in my top 2. The other one was The Children of the Night. So the second to last episode was the other one that I genuinely enjoyed the entire episode.
Yeah.
I think that Calabasas was definitely a turning point for me, because, like I said, I didn't like this show the very first time I watched it, but by the time we got to like episode 8 or 9, I was pretty invested. I need to know what happens now, and I definitely appreciate it. I think What God Wants, kind of like episode number 10, might be the one that kind of hooked me in, and I was just like, from here on out, I'm in it. It's where he came out of his coma, and we started learning more, and then started answering a lot of questions about Christina, because everything Monica has said about Christina from the beginning is like 100% exactly what I thought. Like, I knew bad things were gonna happen, so
I gave off like this weird vibe the whole season, and she was just so like confident, like she had known things. I'm like, you have to be something if you're going to be this confident and get a whole town to believe that your crazy psychotic ass is correct about a werewolf running around. I'm like, and the fact that you are right about it left me really, really suspicious. I just didn't like her. I'm like, bitch dead. She got her neck snapped. She's done.
I think my problem was I also knew Christina was bad news, but like, I really like Freya Tingley as an actress, and the first thing I ever saw her in was in Once Upon a Time, where she played Wendy, and I just didn't want her to be a bad guy, because I didn't want that to be true.
Not even realize she was in that show. I didn't realize I'd seen her before. Good to know.
Like,
there's a lot of people I didn't realize I'd seen before until I was way too far into the season, and they're like, oh, right.
Like, she was a very good actress. I just think the way that they wrote her character made it very hard for us to like her character.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
same with Candace McClure, who plays Clementine.
Yeah.
Like, she acted the F out of that character. Still hated her.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the point.
Well, but the thing is, for Christina, I felt like they, at the end, were trying to make it feel like it was like this big reveal because it's the innocent little girl in the psych ward. But like, they did nothing to make her seem like the innocent cycle.
Yeah, it was not as crazy a reveal as I think they wanted to think it was.
And I think if they had made Christina seem a little less confident and made Christina seem like she was on her own and not the whole town agreed with her, I feel like that would have helped her.
Where was that first scene in the final episode in the middle of the season? Where was the development of Christina having a friendship with anyone?
Exactly. Like, we didn't learn enough about who she was as a person to have any flying shit if she was the bad guy or not. We just didn't like her because she was shady and she was accusing Wolf Boy. Like, that's literally the only reason why we like didn't like her at first.
Like,
so I'm like, and she's being weird and saying like you're a werewolf because your fingers are the same when your pointer finger is longer than your middle finger. I'm like, did I ask? Like, why does it matter?
I mean, that clearly wasn't why she thought that. That was just the first thing that came to her head. It just made her seem really stupid.
Yeah.
But also, the other thing that bothers me is how they address how old people are in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Christina was supposed to be 14, a freshman in high school, super awkward and nervous, and all the other characters are supposed to be like seniors. And there was no distinguishing between how they acted, but there's also no distinguishing how the 17-year-olds and their parents act.
Yeah. It's like age is a joke to them. They're like, here's how your character acts, screw your age. Which, like, no, like, I do think Peter and Roman do a really good job.
Peter and Roman act like 17-year-old boys. Like, yes.
Yeah. But they, in the situations that they're forced into.
Yeah, but to an extent, their humor is as dumb as 17-year-old boys. The way they talk to each other seems like 17-year-old boys, but also like they're out driving cars and buying Coke and taking run of this town and no one's saying anything.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty unfortunately common in a lot of shows I watch, at least. I feel like I see
it is the depiction of teenagers versus what every teenager I've ever met actually acts like is very strange.
See, that's the thing is like a lot of TV shows really made me feel like me being a teenager was like it's gonna be the coolest time of my life. I'd be like sneaking out, going to parties, having fun. But I was a loser in high school, so I did none of that. So I was a homebody, and I would spend my evenings in listening to music and hanging out with my dog. So I mean, not really the most ideal teenage lifestyle.
I mean, I was really cool as a teenager, and I was like dating boys who were way too old for me and going to parties, and I was a hot mess as a teenager, but I still was nowhere near what teenagers act like in TV shows.
Yeah.
I grew up watching Degrassi, and then I went to high school, and I was just this person who was involved in literally every event you could ever be involved in. I did sports, I did band, I was in like 1,000 clubs, like, so I was just always busy, but I never went to parties or drank or did any of that.
My dad blocked the entire channel that Degrassi was on because he was sick of me watching it so much.
My mom tried. She just couldn't figure it. They hated that I watched the end so much, so I watched it at like 3 a.m.
My dad blocked it, and like for a very long time, like I was a good probably 24, and I was like, Dad, why is this channel still blocked on the TV?
Yeah, it had the Jesse McCartney and Zac Efron show.
Summerland. Yeah. Everybody forgets that show existed, and I loved it.
Yeah, that was my all-time fave show. All-time
fave
too.
And the girl who was the original doctor in the Private Practice backdoor pilot in Grey's Anatomy was on that show, and then when Private Practice started, it was a different actress, and I was very confused.
I missed that on Private Practice, but it's been a few years since I watched it. Like,
well, this girl was never on Private Practice. She just was the character in the backdoor pilot.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I love that show too.
Anyway, yeah, no, it's just consistency. And also like everyone was a teenager at some point. So why do authors have such a hard time writing teenagers?
Most of the time, I think it's for theatrics, like, because if you're gonna write a normal story off normal teenagers, the story is going to be mediocre at best. Like, there could be something interesting, but is my life a made for television series? I don't fucking think so. There are aspects, but the
No.
majority of it, no.
No, but also then, like, why does everything have to be set in high school? Like,
True.
we have so much content set in high school. And
I mean,
first
that's
of all,
target
high
audience.
schoolers are not the majority of people watching these shows.
Yeah.
True.
So why not just keep the characters with the characterization you've given them and
But like they're
age them up 5 years?
Yeah, like to their like early to mid 20s, like that. I feel like their character, like more so Roman and Peter's characters, they act like 17-year-old boys when they are together, and that's fine. But I feel like who they are and how they carry themselves are more like a 21 to 23
Right.
year old.
I mean, mostly I'm thinking of like the example that keeps sticking in my head is Gossip Girl, because there's no way, like, though that show would have worked exactly the same if they'd all been in college. Nothing about it changes. So
I
why?
think they try to make their target audience like high schoolers because I guess they think they're more into what's going on in the world. They're the like pop culture center or something, even though I
But
don't think that's
I think
true.
that's changing. I think people are starting to be more aware of what the actual target audience of television watching people are, and like the 25 to 32 age range of women is what you should be designing all of your shows for, truthfully, because we're the ones who just sit there and watch nothing but crap TV all the time.
Yeah. I think you look at like some iconic shows and it's like Saved by the Bell, 90210. Like you're looking at all these shows are all set in high school for high schoolers, and then it's just like, well, that's not necessarily how it is anymore. I don't know if it was then. I wasn't alive in the late 80s. I was barely alive in the early 90s, but so
But even like the new 90210, that was insane.
yeah, I vaguely remember it. I watched it in high school.
Oh, I binge watched it the summer I lived in New York City because I didn't have friends, so I just sat there and watched 90210.
That's been me for 3 years now. I get it. So.
So
Does anyone have a least favorite episode?
uh
I think like maybe like the third one.
The
yeah,
third one, yeah.
I was just thinking
The introduction of Clementine, the third
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
It was just very poorly written.
Yep. And
Which is sad because it was written by Brian McGreevy.
Yeah. And I think that the reason why this one didn't stick as well was for the pure fact that a lot of the accusations that, like, when we did this episode that Clementine was making, she was taking the beliefs of a 14-year-old girl and honestly acting upon those beliefs with, like, but at this point, we don't know that she knows already that Peter's a werewolf. Like,
That's
we don't
true.
know that.
The background, they introduced Clementine in such a poor way, because once we got background on her character, like episode 5, I think, or 6, where we got all that info, like the info dump on Clementine, was really needed, because we literally get this character who's introduced and is going to just take a 14-year-old at face value and make everyone around her uncomfortable.
Yeah, I feel like they could have waited to introduce her completely until episode 5 or 6 because we weren't invested by episode 3. We didn't know the other characters at episode 3, so
if they were going to introduce her early, they needed to introduce her at the beginning.
Yeah.
Or they needed to wait till we had more of a feeling for the show. The third episode was just like, wait, what?
Like, we're only 3 episodes in and you're like, you didn't start off the series with this person, but you're putting them in a little too early after this episode, and we know nothing about them, and she's believing a 14-year-old girl that a boy is a werewolf because his pointer finger is longer than his middle finger. Like, she took that at face value and said, yep. And that's what made me think that this town is unrealistic for how people would act. If you're like, if I were to go up to my mom and say, Mom, so-and-so is a werewolf, like, they're going to kill us, like, they'd be like, do you need medication? Like, there would be a lot more questions and beliefs coming out of that statement. And that's the thing that bothers me.
I'm still mad about the medication issue.
Oh, yeah. Mary Kate went all types like, that medication is not right.
I bet Rachel would jump on that. She's getting excited now. I didn't know anything about medicine.
I mean, I only know because I am on it. But like, it was just a mess.
5 seconds before we get into the trailer, we didn't talk about the 5-second scene after the credits of the last episode. Did you discuss that already?
Wait, there was a scene after the credits?
Of the final episode of this, because I stumbled upon it. I was
No, I did not watch anything after. The last thing I saw was the baby opening its eyes.
You should pull that up, maybe, just even if you don't leave this in the episode.
Well, yeah, no, Monica, you need to go watch this right now.
That's why I was like, this wasn't talked about. I feel like it should have been. But I hadn't seen last week's episode or this week's episode, so I didn't know if y'all just talked about it and then let it go.
Yeah, no, Monica, you're gonna need to watch it, and then we're gonna have to keep at least some part of this in the episode.
The fuck? I was so happy. I thought this bitch was.
I know.
Yeah. Wow.
The fuck? What's that?
No.
That's
Her
how
neck
we talked about it.
Yeah, no, we for sure did not talk about that in the last episode because we did not know. Well, because my Netflix is on autoplay, so once you get to a certain point in the credits, it just starts to go to the next episode. So it never even gave me the choice of watching that scene.
No.
Yeah, I think mine like resets each season or something. So like I hadn't watched anything after the credits of any other episode, and I was like, did I miss something? But I just happened to be like sitting there at the end of that episode, like, what's going on? And then
right.
all of a sudden, a picture of something aside from the credits. And I was like, what? And yeah.
Whack.
Yeah. So Christina is not dead.
Yeah, for our viewers, Courtney had just informed us. We were just watching the season 2 trailer because we couldn't watch it on this because there was copyrighted music in it. And Courtney had informed us. She was like, "Did you guys watch like the last 5 seconds of the final episode?" And both mine and Mary Kate's Netflix is on autoplay, so we didn't get to watch the last few seconds. And plot twist, Christine is in her grave screaming. So, I guess neck snapping doesn't really work on werewolves. Or unless Mary Kate's hypothesis about her being possessed by something is extremely correct. Because that was
made a list, like, if you watched Infinity Wars, spoiler alert, I made a list of the characters left at the end of Hemlock Grove, like I did for that movie, and then I had to like go back and like, nope, this one's alive somewhere, this one's alive somewhere.
Well, So, of the characters who died in the season finale of Hemlock Grove, or had some semblance of death, I think Letha's the only one who stays
I think
So,
because Clementine is with Price, which means who knows what.
right, right.
Um,
But
Olivia
also,
is not dead.
so is Letha. Like Letha is also still in Price's Care.
That's true too.
We never got a funeral scene for Letha. We never got anything like solely putting Letha in the ground yet. So maybe she isn't in the ground yet.
I mean, we put Christina on the ground and she's still alive, so I'm not sure that would have mattered anyways.
Cause I'm honestly really shocked. Like it sucks. Like I feel like Letha's gonna be dead, but it sucks because I feel like her character should have more than what it was.
I finally cared about her character and then she died.
Yeah.
Like the whole time I was like,
Right.
this character is unnecessary. She is not very bright. She's just there to annoy me.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well,
Any guesses as to what season 2 has hold for?
first, let's just start with what we take away from the trailer.
Uh,
17 new characters. I don't know who like half those people were.
Yeah, there was a lot of focus on characters that we don't know.
we got these mask people.
Masks are super weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have this like cult of people, I guess. That's what it seemed like. It was like this weird little cult.
Which
Or
could be related to Laud because they said something about like we have to get rid of the beasts or whatever.
Yeah, so
But
maybe God's out here,
Olivia is solidly not dead. She's like half of the trailer.
And she also is speaking and doesn't have an accent anymore. That's also a thing that has happened. She was
Well, her accent has not been very consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like this has a play in like the storyline because like she has like zero not talking like she's not doing her little I'm from the olden days.
Also, Peter is in town, so
Right.
And Peter has hair again.
Yeah.
well, thank God, because that bald cap they gave him was atrocious.
It really was.
Not good. Yeah, I agree.
I hated it.
I hope it's a cult. I love cults.
I hope they pull in some cult stuff, but I really don't know how they'll fit it in unless.
Well, no, but I mean, technically they already have a cult on the show. We just don't know shit about it. So, like, just give us more.
Just more of that already established cult. You throw in a new cult, I'm gonna riot.
That's the thing. If it's a new cult, it's gonna mess with me up.
With the lack of consistency already, they could give us a cult. That's I'm happy about that.
I am going to have nightmares tonight after that trailer.
Really got you? Are you nightmares because you're angry or nightmares because it's creepy?
No, it was terrifying. Did you see my face?
Well, yes.
Very gory.
It was very gory. It was very gory. There was, first of all, there was eyeball stuff, which we all know I am not okay with. And then there was a bloody hand coming out of a wolf's mouth. Not cute. Not cute. I'm not okay right now.
That really bothered me.
I thought that was
Hold on, I lost you for a second.
legit the coolest thing. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Okay.
Okay. It says stable, just like my mental health. Cool, great, fun. But I thought that that scene with the little hand coming out of the wolf mouth was the dopest shit I have ever seen. I loved it.
I am not okay.
I will say I didn't know the rules, so I watched the trailer right after I watched the last episode.
It's
that
okay.
I had.
No, Monica hadn't watched it before already either. I was the
Oh,
only
okay.
I was the only one who hadn't watched
So
it
I was
yet.
prepared, and I still hated it. It still wasn't enough preparation for me.
No,
Yeah,
the
the eyeball stuff.
the eyeball stuff is just I really, really, really cannot do eyeball stuff at all. Um, but no, it was very well done. But that image of that hand coming out of the mouth, that will never not be seared into my brain.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It made me feel more excited about the second season than the first season. Like when I started the first season, I was not as excited based on trailer. But
I'm very excited. That trailer was really gory, and there were some things that seem like they're coming super out of left field, but it seemed good.
Yeah.
Like it made me excited. Dr. Price freaked me out a little bit in that trailer. We all know I'm team Dr. Price, but I don't know how I feel about him right now after that trailer. There was some Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde looking scenes there.
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about him yet. I don't think I
And
like.
also, there's a
There's a what?
my internet got off. There's a grown ass woman in a tub that was a baby in this season finale, so there has to be a significant time jump if she's now a like 23 woman. Not like multiple
woman the
years in
baby?
between, but there has to be
No.
at least like
No, the woman is not the baby.
Okay.
the baby. Yes, she is. He said it's finally your time to come out. That's the baby that was in that thing. She's a grown ass woman now.
Oh, the baby in
Like
the
she has to be growing at some
the baby. I thought you were talking about the baby, like Letha's baby. You're talking about Ouroboros baby.
Gotcha.
Ouroboros baby. That's Ouroboros baby.
Yes. No. But that doesn't necessarily signify time jump. That's weird sci-fi shit. That could be 2 days.
That's also true.
I thought you were talking about the human-esque infant.
No. Did you also notice that the Ouroboros baby slightly resembles Letha? Like slightly. Slightly. Like it's
I thought
not
it was Letha at first, whenever I first started that scene, and then I was like, no.
Well,
Same.
also, so you know how my friend at work who keeps forgetting that I watch the show one episode at a time, just like will say shit to me, and then I'll be like, what? Like early in the first season, he'll be like, well, it's so fucked that she's the one who did everything. And I was like, who, what? Who are, so I knew it was a girl who was the Vargolf. I thought it was Olivia though, but then I was wrong. But like, he just said that, and I was like, what? Thanks. But one of the things he says to me is, it's super weird how the actress for Shelley just suddenly changes. So Dream Shelley will be appearing as real Shelley at some point in the show, which is who I think the blonde girl in most of the trailer is.
I kind of thought that based on that last scene with Peter driving by. I was like, Shelley's gonna come back.
Yeah.
Really.
He also has spoiled something for me that I'm excited about that I don't know when it's coming.
Don't you
What?
dare. So
No,
don't you dare.
It's something that we have all already been speculating.
Okay.
What, that Roman and Olivia get it on?
Stop it. I don't want to know.
No, not Roman and Olivia.
Although I wouldn't be shocked by that. I had a lot of questions in that scene.
A lot of questions.
I had a lot of questions. I was not.
No, it is about Roman and a lover, but not Olivia.
Don't say it. You could spoil it for Monica when I'm not here.
She already knows who I mean. I can see it on her face.
Yes. Okay. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think I know too, but it's fine.
That's fine. But I didn't say anything.
Right. It was one of my predictions based on how this season ended.
I mean, when he's sitting in the attic crying and his mom's like, what do you need?
I just need Peter. Okay, buddy. You're
It-
fucking in love.
Right.
Ugh.
Since Letha died, it was the perfect setup.
It was a perfect setup. I got lost. Roman did all this just
The girl
so
that
he
they're both in love with is gone, so now they can just be in love
He
with
was-
each other.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, you're not with my cousin sister anymore. You can be with me.
Yes. Yes.
Literally, I was talking to my boyfriend about it.
But before we start dating, you should know my cousin sister's baby that she died in childbirth of. I'm the father.
Right.
Well, guess what? You can still be a dad.
Exactly. You've just been preparing with the wrong person. It's fine.
God, exactly.
This
I just said son of a nutcracker. What the hell am I?
so yeah. As you can tell by the amount of time we've actually spent talking about the show on this episode, we're very excited about season 2.
I feel like season 2 is going to have a very interesting plot, but we all know how they do with plot. There's so many holes in it.
Well, I will say, not a single episode in season 2 is written by Brian McGreevy, which may be a very good thing or a very bad thing. We have yet to find out.
But also, we cannot judge the Rotten Tomatoes scores on this because they lost all credibility when they said The Last Jedi had a higher Rotten Tomatoes score than The Rise of Skywalker. And right there in that very moment, I knew that the
Well,
critics...
I haven't seen those either, so don't spoil this for me.
Oh, I won't. I won't. They both suck, and one sucks less than the other. So they just got it backwards. Basically, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't know what they're always talking about. So I'm gonna have high hopes.
I don't really trust ratings a lot in general.
Well, no,
Also-
because ratings are usually done by critics, which does not actually have any, which is not really how it's viewed by
Yeah,
the
like
average people.
by humans. They're robots. We're humans.
Right.
For the both of you in the call, and for our viewers watching, I got a birthday gift from one of my dearest friends, Casey.
No, don't ruin this podcast. Don't ruin this podcast with your trash.
I'm not ruining it with my trash. I'm ruining it with art. Okay? And I think considering we're just talking about Star Wars, I really think that the audience needs to know what is in my bedroom. And to be honest, I've never been happier to have a 6'3" cardboard cutout of a driver watching me sleep. I scared the shit out of myself this morning when I woke up, but I was scared by Adam Driver, and if he's the one breaking into my house, so be it. That's how I go.
That's hilarious.
But I do think this is one interesting episode that we had filmed.
Well, we'll see how interesting it turns out when I splice all the footage together of this hot mess of a night.
Oh, Mary Kate, you're gonna have fun with that. I'm gonna go get coffee and go die.
I'm not doing this today.
I don't know.
Yeah, so on that note, next week will be our Halloween bonus episode where we watch Halloween, which I still have not figured out how I'm gonna watch yet. I looked at it on my Amazon Fire TV and it told me that I should download this app called Fossum.tv. So I did. And then when I typed into it, Halloween, it gave me a lot of very strange things that were not Halloween, including I Am Big Bird. And so I'm not really sure how the algorithm on that site works. So I deleted the app and I'm on to a new plan.
I also haven't seen it, so this is going to be a new experience for me too.
You've never seen Halloween?
I'm scared of everything, but
Courtney and I are the same person. This is not working out very well for us.
I'm trying really hard to not be scared of everything. So
Halloween is one of I will say there's not gore. There's literally blood in one scene, and it's the opening scene, but it's crap. It's from the 70s, so don't expect some like fantastic special effects. But I like the story of it. Me and Mary Kate have one very distinct disagreement, is because we don't know what made Michael do what he did in the beginning of the movie. You'll know.
Why?
You know.
If I don't know, if I don't know the character's motivation, I don't get behind it.
Well, I think there's a true crime case that was actually based off the movie after it happened.
Yeah.
You should look into that. I'm pretty sure there was like that it was basically the plot of the movie, but in real life, and like 10 or 15 years later.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And the thing that's interesting about, like, my thing that you'll probably hear when we talk about it, is that I like the mystery. It makes him scarier to me because you can't sit there and like analyze him. And like he's just psychotic. Like there was no explanation for it. At least in Rob Zombies, you get the explanation, which, white trash family, abusive, weird, molestive stepdad. Like it's also done by Rob Zombie, so it's every issue ever just hyped up to make you extremely uncomfortable while watching it. So
we're not gonna watch that one, just the original.
Just the original one.
So next week will be that, and then on, where's my calendar? I don't know days.
Are we taking a break and then going back to season 2?
No, it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. It'll be, so then November 8th, we'll be back to season 2 of Hemlock Grove. That is almost your birthday.
My birthday's November 12th, Monica.
Oh.
Right there.
We'll wish you a happy early birthday on the podcast.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh, it's so special when y'all call me out. I get
So if you want to give us feedback, because we probably need it after this hot mess, you can send us an email at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at deathandaliens. You can follow me at MK_superstar, spelled EMKAY.
And you can find me on Instagram at monica.lynn_ and Twitter at Monty_Lynn _ because someone has stolen my identity. And I know Mary Kate's like, you're never getting it back. You say it every episode, but I have to stick to it. It's a shtick I made since episode 1, so here it is. It's staying.
And Courtney, would you like to give our viewers a shout out to your things, or do you want to hide from the world?
I mean, I'm not very exciting, but my handle is at CECloud, like CLOUD 13 on every platform that's ever existed. You can look me up. I post sometimes.
Mostly she just retweets things about true crime podcasts. So
that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, that's mostly what I do with my time, or this podcast. I talk to Death and Aliens a lot, so
yes, which we genuinely appreciate. It's nice to have like actual interaction on online, and it's like people do that. Like I like when I listen to certain podcasts and like they actually interact with people. They're not just like, here's a post.
See, sometimes I feel bad because I listen to podcasts that are like 3 or 4 years old, because I'm like behind, and then I get really angry at them and I want to like message them to be like, you're an idiot, but then I'm like, no, that episode is so old that I can't justify. Like I was listening to an episode about season 2 of Grey's Anatomy, and they said something that was just so dumb, but I had watched the episode of season 1 that answered the question that they thought hadn't been answered the day before, and I was like, no, they said it right here in season 1 16 years ago, so why am I even fighting with you right now?
I get that.
And on that note, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.